Hello and welcome back to 1 to 11, the series where we get a special guest on and we look through their favourite Arsenal players for whatever reason, whether it be sentimental, ability, or just the players they enjoyed watching. Today, we're joined by Tom Canton, host of the brilliant GoonerTalkTV. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you did a great job there. Tom for the Gooner Talk. It's an absolute pleasure talking about nostalgic stuff in Arsenal. So always a pleasure, mate.
Yeah, that's definitely the angle we're going for, trying to get people to remember why they enjoy watching Arsenal. Because let's be honest, this season's been a bit crap, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, let's get it underway.
Let's go for it.
Do you want to start and go?
Yeah, I picked someone that I don't think many people would pick from an Arsenal perspective, being Petr Cech. And it's genuinely purely for a single moment when he saved the penalty against Troy Deeney. That moment for me is my favourite goalkeeping moment of an Arsenal keeper. For a number of reasons. One, I was at the game and we were sitting. I was with a few of my friends who'd come over from America as well to watch it. And we were sitting above the goal in the clock end. And I remember it being given, we were 1-0 up, I think, at the time. So it's a case if they'd have scored it, knowing how Arsenal were back then, we probably would have gone on to lose the game. And Cech had never saved a penalty at this point. Never.
He had a terrible record for us.
Yeah, awful record at saving penalties. And this had come after, of course, Troy Deeney had come out with the whole cojones comment about Arsenal. So it was all set up for him to obviously score and do some form of celebration referencing the comment that he made. But Petr Cech steps up and saves it. And just for that pure moment of just being there, it will happen in the narrative that went with it, I had to pick Petr Cech because it gave me the most joyful moment of any goalkeeper I've watched Arsenal have. So it's a simple one there.
I'll be honest, I'm glad you didn't say it was for his playing out of the back abilities, because I still remember that back pass that went just past the post.
Yeah, that weren't great. I think that was on his debut as well, his competitive debut. Yeah, I was there for that one as well. I remember seeing it. I was literally, after that, I was right behind the goal too, and I remember see my eyes go, oh my God.
Yeah, he was definitely a goalie on his way down, but he still gave us some memorable moments, didn't he?
Yeah, he definitely did.
No, I mean, none more so for you than that one, obviously.
Yeah, that was great. Wonderful moment, yeah.
I mean, yeah, he is... There aren't a great selection of goalies at the moment, are there?
No, I was looking for a guy, right? Szczesny, Almunia, and Leno, Manoni. I was thinking, yeah. It's probably, I mean, obviously you go back and you think of the great Siemens and Lukic and stuff, but for more recent times and me growing up in the early 2000s, I did have Lehmann, of course, and he was mental, absolutely mental. But that moment from Petr, and I'll always look at Lehmann as the guy that took out Julie in the Champions League final. So that moment will stick in my mind. So I'd rather pick something for comedic value and just being there and it being hilarious. So yeah. That one.
Well, as I said, I don't think anyone's got a combination of goalies where everyone's chosen the same goalie so far this series. Back four, back three. What we going?
So the right back. What did I choose? Mainsley, of course, I chose Mainsley because Ainsley Maitland-Niles is our channel kind of mascot, basically at TGT. So it was a case of I could pick someone who I really liked, like Bakary Sagna or Lauren, but I picked Mainsley because it would have been a disservice to the guy that's become our channel mascot, basically. The story around this, again, is very similar. I think, ironically, it even happened during the Watford game. I think it was the exact same game as the Petr Cech incident that this was born. And I was sitting with a good friend of mine, Ola, and a couple of guys called Mike and Joey from the USA who came over to watch the game. And I remember getting so frustrated with our right-hand side, not basically picking up, not tracking whoever it was. It might have been Kiko Firmino, I think, on their right-hand side, something like that. And we just weren't tracking them whatsoever. And I remember just standing up and shouting, and I meant to shout Maitland-Niles, and I just didn't. I just screamed Mainsley for no reason at all. And it just stuck. And obviously the guys that are with me are proper wind-up merchants. So that then stuck for the rest of the the match, them shouting Mainsley. And then one of them, a guy called Tom Rosenhammer, who also comes from the US, as you could probably tell from his surname, he now has an Arsenal shirt with Mainsley on the back. So
that is dedication.
Yeah,
That's a lot of dedication.
So it's definitely been it's been interesting. He's obviously now on loan at West Brom, and it looks like he could go in the summer. But it's had a good rack, and I'm hopefully he stays and can push on. But if he gets Arsenal a good amount of money, then he's done his job. In other words,
yeah. He's a difficult one, isn't he, Ainsley Maitland-Niles? Because he's someone that you can't dislike, but also like I've wanted him to play in central midfield for Arsenal for years. Like 3-4 years. I remember him pocketing Pogba at Old Trafford that night, winning the man of the match, and then being sent straight back to the bench. Yeah. And it's just, you want the best for the kid, but also you just wish he'd say, okay, I'm going to play it right back now and make that my position.
He doesn't have one, realistically. He doesn't have a position at Arsenal because he wants to be a midfielder. Well, he's not going to get into our midfield. He doesn't want to be a right back, even though he's probably done all right there during his time there. And the thing is, where he played best was at left wing back when we played the 3-4-3 formation, and we don't play that system anymore. So he's kind of a player that's expendable and probably will be sold in the summer.
He should fetch a good fee as well, being an England international now. Capable in both fullback roles and in central midfield. Capable to a certain level. I respect that choice. I went for Bakary Sandé personally. I just thought,
he's another one.
He's the longest serving, isn't he? It's got
goal in the North London.
It was close between him and Carl Jenkinson.
Carl, forgot about Carl. Jesus, yeah, Carl is a funny one. Nottingham Forest and all that now, but it's probably the less said about him, the better, to be honest. And then right centre back. I mean, I've picked two right-footed centre backs. But we'll start with Sol Campbell. Sol Campbell was born purely out of my hatred of Spurs, basically. That it's simple as that. My hatred of Spurs has grown so much significantly in the last kind of 5-6 years, mainly because of the friends I have who are Spurs fans and that love to rub it in whenever they get anywhere. And he was the kind of the perfect symbolic person of being a guy that was Arsenal through and through and mugged off Spurs by leaving them as their former captain and doing it so slyly. I remember the neck scratch in the interview that he did leading up to the move and stuff like and he just told him that he was staying and then he left and it was just glorious. So I can't not put Sol Campbell, and obviously he's an absolutely brilliant Invincible and stuff like that. And he's mad as well as a person, as you may have seen some of his social media stuff. He's absolutely mental. Like he's crazy. I've seen him at a game where I was sitting in the North Bank this time with a friend of mine, Lewis, and Sol Campbell was sitting a few rows back. And my friend Lewis turns to me and is like, "I'm going to go get a picture." I'm not the kind of guy that likes to do that. Like I feel for the person. I feel for the someone who's like of a celebrity standing and was loved. And if I was them, I just want to sit and watch the game. Like I feel empathy for that. So I don't really want to. Like I came very close once to shaking Serge Gnabry's hand during an Emirates Cup game where he was on the bench, and I couldn't even bring myself to do that. Like I couldn't take my. And this is the point where Serge Gnabry was like unknown. No one knew who he was. He was just a kid on the bench at this time.
Now you could have that. You could have said, "I shook Serge Gnabry's hand."
I could have that, I could. I'd never wash it again, but no. But the sulky, and then Lewis went off and got a photo, and not only got a photo of him, but he was absolutely lovely. Really nice speaking to Lewis for a good 5 to 10 minutes during the game. I got a picture of him, spoke to him, and I was a bit gutted after that. But it's just, he has to go on the list because of the Spurs situation, how good he was, and just that he's an absolute nutter. So
I remember us bringing him back on loan. Or he might have just signed as a free.
Notts County, was it? I think he went to Notts County or Portsmouth, and we signed him on loan from Portsmouth.
I'll never forget that back pass in the Champions League. You just sort of, where two professional footballers forgot how to play football.
Yeah.
And he just passed it straight back to the goalie.
One of the funniest, funny, weird signings that we do. Just bring back players, sign players like Mikel Silvestre. Sol Campbell's great, but then when he came back, not so great. So but there's
just bringing up Sol Campbell and funny signings that we bring in has just got me thinking of all the other ones we brought in, like Yossi Benayoun. I forgot he played for us for a while.
I loved him. It's great. He got us a goal against West Brom to give us. I think it was West Brom in the game that got us Champions League football. So Yeah, no. There's some great, really weird signs that we've made over the years. Kim Kallstrom, stuff like that. He could have made the list just for comedic value. But then the other centre back was Laurent Koscielny because obviously he's the one that when I kind of really got into football in my later teens, he was obviously the mainstay and centre back at the club, but also my first, like when I was at university and we were in the FA Cup final against Hull City, and he scored the second goal, equalising. There's an amazing camera image of when he scores. He injures himself when he scores, and he's on the floor for a good couple of minutes before getting dragged up and realising we celebrate. There's a great panning camera image of him walking away from the goal, and he just fists the badge as he walks away, and it's just that image is just one of my favourite Arsenal images that's out there, like more than the Aaron Ramsey scoring, and we'll talk about him a little bit later on and stuff, but that's one of my favourite images, just seeing someone who clearly knows what it means to Arsenal, being Arsenal. It didn't end in the best of ways.
I was going to ask, was your, in a sort of a Robin Van Persie way, was your love of Koscielny sort of affected by that horrible announcement video he did and then refusing to get on the plane and all of that?
I genuinely think that the whole sign, when he signed for Bordeaux and he pulled off the Arsenal shirt to reveal the Bordeaux one, I don't think he had much to do with that. I think that was just an idea of the producer at the time, and then Sean was like, "Yeah, sure, like whatever, just get it done." And I'm not particularly fussed by it. He wanted to go. He was pretty much kind of at the age where he'd given us a long career. It wasn't like he was going to a Man United like Van Persie was. He was going to Bordeaux, for goodness sake. And I was fine with that. And I was absolutely fine with it. And if he wanted to go, and I thought the kind of fan base absolutely blew up, as they tend to do.
Arsenal fans? Surely not.
It's strange, isn't it? Really weird. Yeah. But no, I enjoyed everything about Laurent Koscielny. He scored a couple of really mad overhead kicks.
The bicycle kick against Southampton, I was going to bring it up.
He just popped up with silly goals, and he was just a rock at the back who always had Achilles issues. But other than that, he was a must pick for sure.
Sol Campbell and Laurent Koscielny must be one of the most hard to beat yet mistake prone centre back pairings I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and injured as well. Yeah.
Who have you got at left back? Will they give them cover at least?
They can actually, because Nacho Monreal is who I picked at left back, who eventually became Arsenal's kind of left centre back in a back three for a while, with Kolasinac playing ahead of him and Kieran Gibbs playing with him at sometimes. But the funny thing about Nacho Monreal is he's one of, for me, the most consistent players we ever had. He came in, he was good, and he stayed good for the whole time that we was. I never really had a poor game. You never looked at him and go, he's a weak link in the team. He was just solid. And he came up with some really important goals as well. He scored at Old Trafford in the game that Danny Welbeck scored in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup.
That was a brilliant goal as well.
Yeah, really good goal. I think it was on the half volley when he came in to smash it past De Gea. He scored in the semi-final against Manchester City as well. They got an equaliser again in that game. He just pops up now and again with important goals, and he was solid. And he was always kind of that guy that you would look at and go, I think he was the one that would always win the most improved award at the end of the season, but he'd actually kind of stayed the same. But at the end of the season, you still kind of had love for him, and he was always, and he did the orange thing. Do you remember the orange thing that he did? He did a keepy-uppy thing in like his kitchen and with an orange or a satsuma, and then volleyed it into the fridge and right into the compartment where all the oranges go. And it was amazing. And so for all of those reasons, mainly the satsuma, Monreal.
Understandably.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, he would be a great backup. If we could find Monreal again, he'd be a brilliant understudy.
Yeah, even when we sold him, I don't know really why. Like, he's done well at Sociedad since he's gone there. And
the sale baffled me because Tierney was injured, and it was just
panic. Why do that? Yeah.
Arsenal sales over the last couple of years, I mean, going off on a tangent, but it is a bit like a car boot sale, isn't it? You just put it all out front and someone comes, I'll give you that for that. You actually want to sell the other thing, but you go, I need some money somewhere.
And now instead of going to the boot sale, we're going to the tip, and we're just going, it's going to throw you in there and throw you in there. That's what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Arsenal, aren't there? There's no club that you'd rather hate that you love.
They drive you to the edge of insanity.
You talk about them every single day, and every single day,
yes.
We wonder why we talk about them.
Literally my job. And it's horrible, but love it at the same time.
Moving on to midfield, have you gone classic 4-2-3-1. What are you going for?
I went with 4-2-3-1, but it's a weird one because obviously Santi Cazorla, I'll talk about first. You don't think of him as kind of one of the pivots, but he played in a pivot with Francis Coquelin, who was another
off season that was.
Who's another Gooner Talk legend, Francis Coquelin, who basically for every show of the season that he was with Santi, there was a TGT prediction that he would score a screamer. And he's famous for never, ever scoring for Arsenal. And then he went to Valencia, and within a couple of games, he scored. And it was just, I remember being tweeted at by loads of listeners going, look, Coquelin screamer finally happened. But no, he's not in my team. But Santi Cazorla is in because he is one of the best footballers I've ever seen watched live.
Yeah.
He is just an unbelievably gifted, technical, ambidextrous, like ridiculous amounts of talent, and he was one of the biggest reasons why Arsenal stayed in the Champions League when they did. And I also attribute kind of the part of our decline with his injury, and him falling out of the Arsenal team to that horrific injury just fell inside and coincided with Arsenal suddenly dropping and declining, and we never really got back such a technical player in the midfield. Probably I'm struggling to think of anyone since. I mean, you look at Erdegaard, who's just come in. I know he plays in a more advanced role, but that technical ability on the ball, how silky he is on the ball, I see a lot of Santi in him, and not positional-wise, just in the technical ability that he has. But Santi was just on a world-class plane, and we got him for like 60 million from Malaga, and he was expected to come in and be kind of like, people wanted to compare him to Cesc Fabregas because he was Spanish and diminutive and stuff like that. But he just came in and he was his own guy. Like, I don't look at him and go, oh, yeah, he was the next Cesc Fabregas. Santi Cazorla will sit on his own pedestal 100%. As a guy that was just and obviously the free kick in the FA Cup final against Hull when we were 2-0 down, and he just drags you out of those situations. But yeah, and obviously the little dance after assisting Giroud at Manchester City with the free kick, that as well is just one of the best celebrations.
He strikes me as well as one of the most likable players like that I've ever come across in my lifetime.
Yeah,
like he just always seems happy. He's always just so willing to take the piss out of himself. He's just he seems like an all-round really good bloke. And I'm really glad that he's banging them in for Al Sadd in Qatar at the moment.
Yeah, he's scored a couple of absolute screamers as well when he's out there. So
I'd still take him in the Arsenal midfield.
Yeah, I really hope that he comes back as like a coach and or an ambassador for the clubs. I genuinely believe. I know he's got a lot of links to Villarreal, and he went back there, of course. But I feel like he's an Arsenal man. I feel like he's got an attachment to the club, and that's where he was happiest as well. So yeah,
we miss his ball carrying ability in that midfield. Yes.
Which is still kind of been made up a bit by the guy who I've put next to him, which I know he's only been here since September. But Thomas Partey is just for me a dream player. He's a player that because the amount of football that I have to watch and analyse for transfer videos and stuff like that, and now for work, is that I never thought in a million years Arsenal would get Thomas Partey. And I've championed him on Twitter, on social media, on everything, in podcasts, saying there's one guy that I would have in midfield, it's Thomas Partey. And everyone's like, you're mental, it's never going to happen. And I remember doing a tactical breakdown on him in January of last year with a Spanish expert who does Sky Sports commentary for La Liga. And even he was like, he's never going to go to Arsenal. Like, you're never going to get him. It's not going to happen. So give up dreaming. And then obviously some miraculous way it happens last summer. And I just got the job that I do now at 101, writing about football. And I was doing the late shift on transfer deadline day and just writing all day about Thomas Partey and continuously checking social feeds, continuously trying to find out from people around me if anything's happened, if he's arrived in the country, if the news reports are a load of rubbish. And yeah, eventually it happened. And it was, I then did a show in the evening with a couple of guys who were members called Owen and Jared. And it was, I think, the most watched live show. I think we had over 1,000 live watchers watching that show. And it was just absolutely mental because everyone had just tuned in to celebrate Thomas Partey. And it was wonderful. So yeah.
It was a really weird day, wasn't it? Because at the start of it, I remember Fabrizio Romano tweeting, "There's no chance that Atletico."
Yeah, Ornstein was like, "There's no way." Like, it would take something miraculous to happen for Arsenal to sign it. Yeah,
yeah.
And then it did. And it's funny because I remember getting a text the day before from a friend of mine who'd got, and I think it eventually went round on social media a few hours later, that there had been a WhatsApp sent between Partey and his reps and someone close to him. And I was like, that's fake. Like, that's not real. Like, are you kidding? Like, that's becoming like so easily made up. And then it turned out that was true. And then there was the whole AFC Bell thing the whole summer. Everyone's following this account. Even me, I was given this account grief. Like, I've been like, come on, come on, you don't know anything. What are you making it all up, mate? And then it was wonderful to be proved wrong. So yeah,
that was a very happy evening after the summer that we went through, which was, will we sign a midfielder? Will we sign? Like, originally it was meant to be Partey and Aouar, and then Aouar fell through because of alleged financial issues with reps, and then Partey came on, and it was sort of like saving what was looking like quite a stagnating window.
Really poor window. It would have been really, really poor. If it had just been Willian and Gabriel and Runnerset, you'd have been going, "Oh my god, like, this is really."
We got Ceballos back. Don't forget him.
Oh, of course, yeah, of course. But yeah,
and now Nenny came back from loan. Plenty.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And when Partey's been injured, it's been great, hasn't it? It's been wonderful.
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
No, exactly. So I'm hoping now that while Partey's back, we can really kind of kick on, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's the midfield too. I reckon they would have absolutely smashed it.
I would have loved to see that.
Partey. Yeah, it would have been unreal. And then on the right-hand side, he barely played on the right, but I couldn't put him in the midfield because I've picked Partey and Santi, and I've put Aaron Ramsey on the right-hand side. And he had a period in a couple of seasons where he played on the right for Arsene Wenger quite a lot, because I think either Theo Walcott was injured or we didn't have a striker and Walcott was playing up front and Ramsey would go on the right. But I picked Ramsey because he is just one of my favourite players. Just coming through, obviously being bought from Cardiff, really young age, going through a leg break, coming back from that, scoring the goal to win our first trophy in 9 years after an absolutely unbelievable goal-scoring season. The goals against Liverpool, the goal against Norwich, home and away, that he scored. It was just an unbelievable season, capped off in the best possible way. And the fact that Yaya Sanogo was involved in the build-up for the FA Cup final goal, it just makes it even better. So yeah, and I have absolutely no qualms with Aaron Ramsey when he wanted to go. Like, we offered him a contract, or supposedly offered him a contract, and then we took it away. I'm not 100% sure of the details behind it, but I don't really know what happened. There was the issues with the Özil contract situation and other futures of other players, and for whatever reason, he wanted to go and wanted to do a different challenge. And when you're coming to the end of your deal and Arsenal are in decline, yeah, you'd think that I'd rather we put our money into him than Mesut Ozil, of course. But he went off to Juve. You've got a chance to go off and play with Cristiano Ronaldo in Serie A, winning titles, competing for Champions League. Can I really blame him for that? Not in the same way that I blame Van Persie to go to Man United or Alexis to go to Man United, although there's an irony coming up very soon. But I can't look at him and go, yeah, like, I'm not that fussed about him going, and I don't blame you. And thanks ever so much for everything you do. He scored against Chelsea, of course, was in the other final too. So yeah, he's just I just loved him as a player, and he always encapsulated like the Ghana playing field or the playground where you try and do too many skills and mess it up, and then but instead of giving up and realizing I'm actually not good enough to do those skills, just keep doing them. Just keep on doing those skills, and that's what he was.
He was a bit of a weird one, wasn't he? Because he was almost very un-Wenger-like. And the Wenger loved to have those really technical, creative midfielders. And it might be doing him a disservice to say that he's not a technically gifted player.
Well, in comparison to the others.
Yeah, precisely. He's sort of like... it's difficult to talk about him as one of those technically gifted players like Cazorla. But he was also just full of running, and he'd always end up in the box at the same time. And he scored some screamers. You've already talked about the Norwich one. There was the back heel in the Champions League that he scored. There was the goal again. Was it Fulham he scored?
Yes.
And
he did a back heel in another game. I can't remember what it was, but he loved that back heel, like through his legs and then flick it through. Yeah.
And then there was that brilliant goal against Galatasaray,
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's the left-footed
that
strike.
goal is one of the
That's
most
the best
criminally
goal.
underrated goals I've ever
No
seen.
one's scored that goal since. Like on your weak foot from that far out
35
with
yards
that
out
power.
from the corner. Yeah,
I just remember seeing again, bringing it back. I think Yaya Sanogo is on the pitch, and you see him react. It's like, oh my god, like, what have I just witnessed? How am I ever going to play in this team when you're doing that? Like, come on. So yeah,
he was unbelievable, and he was really good from the right. I thought when he played there, it was a lot of Ramsey on the right, Özil sometimes drifting to the left. It was a very odd way to end Wenger's legacy, but Ramsey is one of those players that encapsulates what Wenger wanted. As he got older with the running and the coming from deep, and he scored some, as you say, really important goals for us.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so on the left, I know I said that I ain't got any qualms with Ramsey going to Juve, and then I have an issue with Van Persie going to United, but I have picked Alexis on the left, mainly because he redeemed himself a little, because an interview came out where he basically turned around and said after the first Man United training session, he called his agent and said, "Can I come back to Arsenal?" Which is just brilliant. Like that's great. So I think you've redeemed yourself a little bit. He was on the decline anyway, and that showed with his performances at United. And we definitely got the best of him. But he is probably, alongside Cazorla, my favourite person to watch live. Like, he took players on, the mentality he had, the will to win, the goals he scored. I remember I was at the Liverpool game when we won 4-1. And he scored a really good goal from outside the box after I think Özil and Bellerin had scored. And then Giroud rounds off the game with the fourth goal after I think it's Sterling that gets one goal to make it 3-1 or 2-1. But Alexis was just the goal in the FA Cup final against Villa, like that unbelievable striker goal against Manchester United from outside the box, the equaliser against City, the equaliser against Spurs away from home. So many goals in big games that he came up with, and he was the big signing that we made that did turn up for us in those games. He scored a really good goal against Man City at home when we beat Man City, and that was big for us too. So he is probably the best player of the Emirates era, I think. I know that Thierry Henry played at the Emirates towards the end of his career, but he's a Highbury man through and through. Santi Cazorla technically is probably the best at the Emirates, but just in raw quality and power and determination and will to win, Alexis is probably the best player we've seen at the Emirates by a distance.
I'll always remember him. I mean, apart from the sourness of him leaving for United, for the 97th minute Panenka against Burnley.
How much you want to take the mick out of a team?
It did just look like he was playing in the wrong age group for a lot of games, like the hat-trick against West Ham, for example, when he sat the keeper down for the third one.
Yeah,
it was just, he was terrifying to watch, as well as you imagine he was terrifying to play against.
And with, like, can you imagine playing with him? Like the expectation on you playing with Alexis Sanchez.
Well, there was that quote from Bellerin that's come out as misquoted, but Bellerin said Sanchez wanted to win too much or something.
Yeah, that was the most taken out of context quote I've ever seen. But yeah, no.
He was a special character. By most accounts, not particularly sociable or even likable, but a pretty special character on the football pitch.
Yeah, easy. And then at 10 is Dennis Bergkamp, who I unfortunately never got to see play live, which will be one of my greatest regrets. I never watched a game at Highbury. Will be another one because, and I'll talk about that with my striker pick in a second. But yeah, I never got to go to the Highbury when I was young because my dad wasn't an Arsenal fan. My granddad was, who I never met. And that's where that came from. My dad's a Gillingham fan, so from in Medway in Kent. And so I didn't get to Arsenal until I was a lot older. But Bergkamp was the guy that I remember watching on telly the most, the guy that stuck in my mind the most. I know a lot of people go to Thierry Henry for very obvious reasons, who isn't in my team, which a lot of people might turn around and say, are you mad? Like, why is it? And again, this isn't down to quality. If we were talking about quality, then of course he'd be sitting in that team. But this is kind of that connection between a player and yourself. And Bergkamp was like my favourite player to go back and continue watching, seeing the things he did. He's the most rewatchable player ever. The skills he did, the goal against Newcastle will always go down as I think the greatest goal ever. But you talk about the other goals he scored, like against Leicester, where he brings it down, the touch, and then just pings it past the keeper like it's no problem. He scored another one against Leicester too, that was unbelievable with kind of how he gets the touch to curl it round the keeper. With it looks like he's barely touched the ball, but it just sails around the keeper with ease. And it was a case of his story is amazing coming from Inter Milan as a player that had been deemed a failure to then turn into arguably the most talented player in the Premier League of that period. So, yeah, it was an easy choice in that role.
Yeah, no, he was probably the best player I've ever seen in terms of technical ability and just the way he played football. It's always the players that seem to really enjoy themselves on the pitch that I think you fall in love most with, just because you can tell they're enjoying what they do, and his every touch was brilliant. He scored all 3 goal of the months, didn't he? In '99.
You just keep coming up with like you can just keep coming up with things about him because and obviously my kind of podcasting roots come from me starting out on a Burkout Wonderland with Danny and the guys over there, so that'll always stick for me as well. So
he was in my team as well. It's not possible to have a favourite Arsenal team of our generation without Dennis Bergkamp in it, I think.
It's tricky, I mean, some people might put Ozil in over him, but I can't. It's just a disservice, really.
Yeah, I agree. So to round it up, who have you got up top?
I've got Olivier Giroud. That's my
Arsenal guy.
Sorry? I could have done that. He's provided me some equally amusing moments, is the word, I suppose. But Giroud is the guy that I picked because Giroud, my first ever Arsenal game, as I said, I got to Arsenal very late in terms of like being there, and I was 17, and we played Coventry in a League Cup match, and we won 5-1. And Oxlade-Chamberlain scored an absolute screamer. Arshavin was on his last legs, and he scored a goal as well. I think it was his final season. But Olivier Giroud scored his first ever goal for Arsenal in that game. And he runs through and he just dinks it over the keeper, having failed to score in the previous 9 matches. He really went on kind of a run of everyone going, Christ, we're replacing Robin van Persie with this guy, and he can't score any goals. But that goal against Coventry kind of kicked off his season, and he went on to score, I think it was 18 goals, and he had a red card against Fulham with about 5 games to go. And I had a bet with a friend at the start of the season, the £5 bet that he'd scored 20 goals in all competitions. And he was on 18, and then he got sent off against Fulham and missed 3 of the last 4 games. So I lost the bet because I think he ended on 18 or 19 goals. But I just really enjoyed Olivier Giroud when he was at Arsenal. I was gutted when we sold him. I was thinking, 20 million, that's quite a lot of money. And then I've seen him go to Chelsea and what he's done, and they've easily got their money back for what they've invested in him. It's painful when he said the thanks Arsenal thing on the bus after the Europa League final. That hurt like hell. It was horrible seeing that. Yeah, that was. I block it out and I just focus on his time at Arsenal. The scorpion kick against Crystal Palace is one of my favourite goals of all time. What else I loved is that I know it pissed off a lot of people, but the next game against Bournemouth, when we go 3-0 down, we get back to 3-3, and he does the scorpion kick celebration, and we still need to win the game. This is the most arrogant man on earth, and I respect that. Complete respect for the level of arrogance that he has, because he was I don't want to say average footballer, but he was he wasn't top class. He was nowhere near world class. He was just a decent striker. But I think he did a lot more than what people give him credit for. He scored a lot of really good goals for us. He produced for us in big moments. He also completely failed for us in big moments. Like the Monaco game will haunt me for the rest of my life.
The season Leicester won the league, half of that.
That as well, yeah. If we'd have had a striker, if Welbeck had been fit and Giroud had been firing, we probably would have gone on to win the league that year, unfortunately. But we couldn't take our chances when they came to us. But I think he's arguably one of the Premier League's most underrated strikers ever. And he gave us a lot of really kind of good moments. And I'll never forget the advert that he did where he sprays himself with deodorant and he calls himself gorgeous. Just hilarious. And Arteta's in that advert, ironically, as well. I think talking about his hair, of how stuck his hair is. So it's just he's just I really enjoyed Olivier Giroud for what he was, and he just kept proving people wrong and right at the same time. So yeah, he has to go in the team.
Giroud's such a weird one because, as you say, he wasn't a great striker. He wasn't. It's so cliche to say, but he was never a great goal scorer. But he was a scorer of great goals, wasn't he? Like he scored. If you put his highlights reel together, you can make him look like he was the best player on earth.
Yeah.
But then if you ended up putting his lowlights together, you'd end up with sort of a conference player where he'd miss one-on-ones. He'd be putting stuff wide from 2 yards out. He was such a frustrating
the little flicks as well that he would do. The outside of his boot, leading up to the Wilshere goal against Norwich when he's involved in that one. The flick through to Podolski's against Montpellier when he smashes that over the keeper. That's Giroud's flick. And he ran on for the Ozil pass that he flicks through his foot and he runs onto it and clips it over. He even nearly messes that up. Like in that moment, he is a French lamppost, as people describe him. But he could overtake Thierry Henry as France's all-time top goal scorer, which in itself is hilarious. So he's 34 or 5 now, and it would take a hell of a lot to I think he needs like 5 or 6 more goals. But he'll go to the Euros, because Deschamps loves him, absolutely loves him.
He's a brilliant team player in the way that he brings everyone else in. Even if he doesn't score, he does so much for sort of holding the ball up. And Arsenal really miss that at the moment in terms of attacking cohesion. We're a lot better with Lacazette on the pitch because he does some of the stuff Giroud does. But those flicks around the corner that we saw against West Ham in the draw just gone, where he flicked it through for Saka a couple of times, I think he played Auer through as well. That's sort of what Giroud was doing on a regular basis.
Yeah, without him, they don't win the World Cup either. France, he didn't play in the first game. I think it was against Australia, and they were. I think it was either 0-0 or 1-1, and he comes on in the second half, and it just changes how France play. And then Deschamps just doesn't drop him for the rest of the tournament
because he couldn't.
No, he's just so important, and I feel like if we kept adding players, because that was the summer where we had to replace Van Persie, and we did that by bringing in Podolski, Cazorla, and Giroud. The following season, we bring in Mesut Ozil, who he sets up Giroud for his first ever assist at the club against Sunderland. And then the season after, we bring in Alexis. And then we stopped, and we just stopped adding quality players. And then we started to spend more money, and we brought in Mustafi and Xhaka. And you're thinking, why? What are you doing? Why are you not? We've got a really good kind of bulk of a squad here. You've got a spine that you could add to. Giroud's a good end to the spine. You've got Alexis and Ozil around him. You've given him the service. Yes, he might need 3 chances to score 1 goal or 10 chances to score 1 goal, but we are making that many chances. Yeah. If you add to the defence, we might actually have a decent title-winning side, but we just never did, and it will go down again as Arsene Wenger failing towards the end of his tenure after the great things he did at the start. But yeah, Giroud is my striker, and no one can tell me otherwise. So yeah.
with actually, there's a theme with yours with Giroud and Ramsey. Both have been sort of linked with moves back to Arsenal in their twilight years. Yeah. So Giroud would be about 36, and Ramsey's wanting to be
29, 30, I think.
He's trying to leave Juve, or Juve are trying to get rid of him. According to reports. So it'll be interesting. Would you take both of them back? You've named them both in your squad, but would you have either?
No chance. I'm a nostalgic person in terms of liking to look back on memories of football, but I'm very much an advocate of once it's done, it's done, and you move on and you go on to the next thing. And I don't think they're the type of profile in terms of their age that Arsenal should be going for. And they argue. I mean, Giroud is not a better striker than Aubameyang, for instance. I think he's probably on par with Lacazette, ironically, and I don't think Lacazette actually progressed us from Giroud at all. I think he just kind of carried on with what we already had, and maybe even less. And Ramsey doesn't get in because I'd much rather we went for an Ødegaard permanently. Smith Rowe's future, I think, is brighter than maybe what even Ramsey gave us. And he doesn't get into the pivot because he doesn't get in above Xhaka or Partey.
Sure.
So, for the money it would take to get Ramsey in under contract and his wages, no. And Giroud is, just far too old now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you, but there's certainly people out there that would, for the nostalgic value alone, be looking to bring them in. But this is what this series is about, nostalgia, making people reflect on, because the football comes so thick and fast, especially this year. People don't really stop and think about the moments, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to just get people to think back about the players they enjoyed, players that they had fun watching, the players that brought the most joy.
Mm.
And your 11 is interesting, but
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's
Pretty
your
terrible.
11. Oh, it would be fun to watch.
Yeah. Maitland-Niles with Ramsey in front of him. Yeah, that would be very strange. And then just Alexis getting annoyed with Monreal all the time. Yeah.
But you might score some screamers with Koscielny, Monreal,
yeah.
Giroud.
Partey wouldn't, because he can't hit a cow's ass with a banjo. But the rest might be able to score. Yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on, and a pleasure to go through your 11. Make sure to check out Tom. His link will be in the description, and we'll be on with another guest very shortly. Until then, come on, you Gunners.